Welcome to CirclesOff, episode number 57. I'm Rob Pizzola, joined by Johnny from betstamp. What's up?
Suffering from allergies today.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring that up.
The allergy season is in full effect here. If I go golfing next day, regardless of taking any allergy pill, just get KO'd for an hour, my sneeze and stuff. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
For the love of the game.
I could tell you were suffering a little bit today, the way you were walking around, a little bit antisocial today. You're usually more social. But I do want to say, we golfed yesterday, myself and Johnny. Both put in great rounds, by the way. Banger rounds. I think both are lows for the year.
Yeah, so far.
But we were forced to walk the course yesterday, which does not make Johnny happy. And when I say we were forced to walk the course, I showed up to the course earlier, like I usually do, try to putt a little bit, whatever. And I saw no power carts outside. Power had been out for a few days. So it was just the pull carts.
Well, we had a big storm here, like a windstorm, which knocked the power out of a couple locations. And it's been slowly just getting it back over the last couple of days. So yeah, that particular course that we played had no power. I actually walked in to the clubhouse. This is like an early morning round. I walked into the clubhouse just to check in. I said, here we go. I noticed he wrote my name down on a paper. The sun was coming up, so I couldn't really tell that there was no lights on in the thing, but because he had his computer behind the desk. He wrote my name on a paper, which I thought was a little weird. Like, why is he not checking me in on the system? And then I was like, so can I grab a key for a cart? And then the guy was just like, ha, buddy, power's out. Couldn't charge him. You're walking today. I said, oh my God. Grab one of those pull carts. I hate walking the course. I hate it, man. Especially in allergy season, because like I'm just walking, just straight kicking through dandelions. No, I'm not the best golfer. Listen,
Yeah, we spray the ball.
The course is kept well, but I'm not the golfer who's putting it like right down the pipe every time. Like, I'm oftentimes playing a little left, might be in rough, still in play, but I got to go through those dandelions and not the best.
I got to the course in the morning. I also walked into the clubhouse. I'm like, hey, buddy, no carts? The guy's like, no power, no carts, no Tim Hortons. I'm like, oh man, you couldn't even get a coffee? He's like, no Tim Hortons.
Tim's was out of power.
Immediately, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, Johnny's going to be so upset when he gets here, because not only is he not going to be able to take a cart, but he's definitely hitting that Tim Hortons by the course, and there's no way he's going to be able to get a coffee.
I did hit that Tim Hortons. I didn't even tell you. I went to the Tim Hortons, and there was like a line of 2 people in the drive-thru, and I was just like, oh, perfect. It's open. And then I went there, and then there was a sign there saying like power outage, and there was definitely no power inside the Tim Hortons. I'm like, rolled down the window, and there was a guy in the drive-thru. I'm like, hey, is it open? Like, he's been waiting there. He's like, yeah. And then I waited there for a bit, and then that guy didn't know what he was talking about, dude. It wasn't open.
No.
He was waiting there for nothing. Like there was signs like we're experiencing power outage, should be back. And I think they did open it up later that day. But yeah, that Timmy's was out. I went straight back out to the course, no coffee. Had to walk the full course. It was a nice day though. Beautiful day.
Yesterday was beautiful. So last year there was a day where it rained in the morning and we were playing in the afternoon, and it was a cart path only day. I'm like, I hate cart path only because I spray the ball everywhere too. But normally my miss would be like a slice. I'm a right-handed golfer. The cart paths on our home course is usually on the left. I'm like, I'm not running across the fairways with 4 clubs in my hand, get my distance or whatever. I'm not doing this. So I show up at the first tee with my pull cart. Johnny's there. He's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm walking today. He's like, I will seriously go home. I'm not playing with you if you're walking. You're going to slow everything down. I'm like, it's cart path only, man. We're going to be running all over the place. It's going to be a disaster. He's like, I'm telling you right now, go and get a cart or I'm going home. You have an option. You could play alone or you can get a cart. And by the way, these are COVID rules. We couldn't share carts at the time. So I'm like, all right, I went and got a cart. That day, when we were done, you did admit to me, you're like, maybe we could have walked. It was really slow with the carts. But yesterday, we tee off first hole. Johnny's drive goes left. Very visible. Like from the tee, we knew where it went. Like it was just in a patch of rough on the left. But me, Johnny, and his brother are just walking around looking for this ball, and we can't find this ball. And he is so triggered from the walking. He's like, this is so stupid. We're walking around. We can't find anything. The ball could be anywhere. If we had a cart, we could drive around and whatever. It did take us a while to find the ball, but we found it.
It was just like tucked under the rug. It wasn't even like in a bad area. It was right there. It's
I
like
do
if
get
you had
it.
a cart,
Yeah.
you just drive right up quick. You get a nice look. You back. Oh, there it is, right there. When you're walking, you're just like, you can't even cover ground.
I love walking the course. I love walking.
No, you can never play with Johnny. By hole number 3,
you didn't even like walking that course.
It's at least level. It's at least level. It wasn't too bad. Listen, my preference is not to walk, but if it's path only and it's a level course, I'll consider walking. And also, like, I don't mind walking. It's just not my preference. But by hole number 3, Johnny here is like, damn it, I just cleaned these golf shoes. I just washed these shoes. I'm walking through all this grass. I'm like, dude, they're golf shoes, man. Like, he's like, I just cleaned these shoes. He was miserable. The first like 4 or 5 holes, he's miserable. But we got to like hole 15 or 16. He's like, Rob, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually kind of enjoyed the walk today. It's like I got some good exercise. It was a nice day. He's like, I'm feeling it in my legs a little bit, but I actually kind of did enjoy walking.
Like, I'm not used to walking the course, but in no means am I in like bad shape or anything like that. It's like more like just your feet kind of hurt a little. You're on your feet all day. Like, golf shoes are not the most comfortable walking shoes. They have the cleats in them, obviously. Like, they're not the best for walking. But anyways, I'll never walk again unless I have to, because I don't golf for the exercise. Like, golf is not an exercise for me.
I get it. Same with me. Although I've played my best rounds when I walked. I don't know why that is. I really don't know. But I will say, it's going to sound sad to people out there, but like, I kind of felt it in my legs last night a little bit when I was at home night. I'm like, my legs are, you do a lot of walking. You don't really realize how much you're doing over the course of 4 hours, but I'm fine with it overall. I'm not as anti-walk as you are.
I think I have a theory for why you play better when you walk. You don't rush. Like, when you're in the cart, you're like, get to the ball, hit the ball, go. When you walk, you're looking at the course as you go up there, looking at things as you're approaching the ball, like you're coming up to it. You kind of get maybe just subconsciously getting a read on it. Then you get up there, hit the ball, make your way on to the next one. You're not like just flying through the round.
You want to hear a very funny story? Adam Chernoff, friend of the program. We had him on CirclesOff earlier this year. He was going to be in Toronto for the launch of sportsbooks on April 4th, regulated gaming. And we were trying to set up some sort of golfing thing with him if the courses were going to be open. They weren't at that time. But Adam is a notorious walker of the courses. And Johnny was just like, dude, we have to get this guy in a cart. Like, there's no way. I'll play with this guy, but there's no way we're going to play and let this guy walk with us. Like,
no, that's a foul for me. Like, you can't, this is why I don't want to walk. Like, if you're all walking, fine, right? You're playing the same pace. And sometimes if you're behind another group, like, the cart is speeding you up, and then basically you just end up waiting at the tee box, shoot the shit, grab a beer, whatever. It's fine. But I'm not playing rounds where one guy's walking and 3 guys are in the cart. And then I just got to deal with this one guy. And then, like, midway through the round, he's like, oh, let me put my bag in your cart. Buddy. Buddy, you're bagging my cart now? Now I got to drive. No. This is it. Like, it's done. I don't do that. I'm playing. I'll be like, okay, you go play ahead. Play a solo round.
I swear when I told Johnny that Chernoff always walks and refuses, it looked like he saw a ghost. He's like, dude, no. We're getting this guy a cart.
Like, golf is not an exercise. Like, you can't walking a golf course. There's not a workout for the day. I enjoy golf as a nice, fun thing where I could go and sit down in a cart and
That's
relax.
personal though. It's personal preference.
So what I like about the cart is I can buy multiple beers at once. Yeah. And with the pull carts, you just got the one slot. I enjoy a nice cold brew when I'm golfing in the summer. I think I play better when I drink.
I'm buying 2 new hybrids right now.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you go get fitted at least if you're gonna buy clubs.
Buddy, I'm trash. I can't get fit. I'm
No,
too
Josh,
trash to get
go
fitted.
You have to
Go
get fitted.
It's a waste. It's a waste.
My swing is not even good though.
It doesn't matter,
it
but you have a
helps.
style of you.
I'm gonna get fitted for a swing that's not a good swing.
I understand, but are you gonna fix your swing this year?
I might.
You've said that last year too.
I might take winter lessons next winter.
Okay, so maybe then you don't buy a hybrid now and you just wait.
Yeah. Don't do this.
Don't what?
What's wrong
don't
with
just,
your
like-
hybrids are good.
Don't
I'm
just
gonna get the
impulse buy
SimMax.
this.
I don't have a 3
I have
hybrid.
the SimMax. I have the SimMax.
I don't have a. I'm gonna buy the SimMax 1. I heard bad things about the SimMax 2.
I have the SimMax 1.
I agree
I
with
got
Rob
fitted for
here.
them.
I'm gonna get the SimMax 3 and 4 hybrids.
No,
Three-
I
three or
agree
four.
with Rob here. There's no problem with buying these things, but if you're going to do it, wait until you've decided you're going to work on it and then go get fitted after the fact, or go get fitted now.
Exactly.
Either way, get fitted.
Get fitted regardless. Like you have a certain swing speed, you have a certain swing type, so you might attack the ball steeper or whatever. Like, don't
And you
just
play enough. You play enough that it's worthwhile.
All right, where do I go get?
Listen, you don't have to walk with me
Where do
again
I
this
get?
year.
Where do I
but
get
you
fitted?
just go
I'll set
anywhere.
you up.
Yeah, we'll set you up.
You know a guy?
Yeah, I do actually.
You know a guy who knows a guy?
No, I know a guy.
He knows a guy directly
Yeah.
that doesn't know a guy.
Okay,
All right,
done deal.
we're gonna move on here. We do have another guest this week. He is a friend of mine, although we had some interesting butting of heads years ago. One of my first experiences with this guy was I was an influencer for Oddshark, which is an offshore affiliate. And I used to go out to an event in Vegas every single year and promote Oddshark. This was years ago, probably about a decade ago. And one day we were at the Westgate in Las Vegas, and the Oddshark staff came up to me and they're like, there's some crazy guy in the sports book who's just yelling at everyone who has an Oddshark shirt on, calling them a scumbag and whatever. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe like, do you know who this is? They're like, oh, he's just some nut job. I go down to the casino. It's our guest, Jason Weingarten. You can follow him on Twitter at Spreadapedia. He is a pro sports bettor. He's a contributor for VSiN, and I think he does get a bad rap because he's very animated on some things. And also, we're going to talk about this, but he is one of the best, if not the best, Mexican baseball bettor of all time.
History. In history.
Jason, welcome to CirclesOff. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me. What's going on?
All right. So obviously people have seen you on this platform before. CirclesOff alumni from the Super Bowl special, but we were pretty rapid fire on that edition of the episode and just going bang, bang, bang through a bunch of different picks. And no one really got to know the story behind Spreadapedia, Jason Weingarten. So for those who are seeing you for the first time or may not be familiar, just give us some of your personal background and how you got involved in the betting space.
So I've been betting now 2020, doing this pretty regularly now for probably about 12 plus years, probably closer to 15. I started when I was in college. Wasn't a particularly good bettor at first. Took several years to kind of understand what I was doing and get to a point where I could even, start to make money. Then it took even longer to make real money. But basically got into football first. Spent several years doing football stuff. Then I ended up getting chicken pox at some point as an adult. And that got me into baseball because I was kind of stuck at home and couldn't do anything for a month. So I learned a lot about sabermetrics and a lot of the stuff I had missed the last couple of years. This was, I want to say, like 2012, 2010, somewhere around there. I got chicken pox. I went to a Tool concert in San Diego. So it was whenever they were playing in San Diego back then. That's when I got chicken pox. But that led to the whole learning baseball, and I recovered. I ended up going to SLOAN that year. I think, Rob, you might have been there that year. Whole bunch of people were there. It was like the first year all the gambling people were really at SLOAN. I came at the last minute. I didn't even have a ticket to Sloan. I just used my old badge. I figured they wouldn't notice. They didn't. So I met a whole bunch of gambling people there. I got my first real, gambling opportunity out of that, and rest is basically history.
That's very interesting. The first thing that resonated with me is that your story is very, very similar to that of Joe Pita, who is, I read his book, Trading Bases, and he didn't get chicken pox, but he got into a car accident, and he was a Wall Street trader, and he was just forced to be at home every day. And he just was watching afternoon baseball and took a liking to it and said, I'm going to figure out how to apply like a lot of the Wall Street, modeling that I do to baseball. So it's kind of weird sometimes how just like a random thing, like going to a Tool concert and getting chicken pox, sets you into this like course of, or this path of life that you probably would never would have found had that, situation not happened.
What is that? The butterfly effect or something?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that movie. It's before my time, but
it's a good thing you didn't see it.
not a good
I don't know
movie?
if you've seen that, Jason, butterfly effect, but it's,
Yeah, I know the butterfly effect.
yeah. I mean, you need to indulge in some recreational drug use probably to watch that movie and enjoy it, I would say.
okay, fair enough. But yeah, that's awesome. I also love that you use the old pass to get into Sloan.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about MIT kids is they're smart enough to put on a conference. They're not smart enough to tell the security guards to look at the actual badges.
But now they changed the colors, right? Because it used to be the same badge every year. But I think the last 3 or 4 years, they've now changed the colors of the badges. So it'd be much harder to get in. But either way.
Yeah, and it's way more expensive now. I mean, now it's a serious ticket. Back then it was like $200-300, whatever.
As soon as the ESPN sponsorship came into place, I think the tickets got listen, there are a lot of good guests at Sloan, but the application to sports betting is not necessarily
But
there.
even in general, I mean, Jason, I know you've been a bunch of times then. Like, do you think it'd be valuable nowadays for somebody? I mean, I guess
No.
betting or non. What about someone who wasn't a bettor, just wanted to learn about the sports business industry?
I think the last time I went, I saw like a bunch of high school kids and stuff, and I was like, what are you guys doing here? Like, what do you think you're gonna add to this? No offense I was young once too, and probably not that young when I was trying to do stuff, but it's just gotten too big. Like when I went the first time, Adam Silver was still the deputy commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just able to like go up to him and have a conversation with him for like 10 minutes, talking about betting and the NBA's stance on betting. And now you couldn't imagine getting 10 minutes of a speaker's time like that to talk about anything just because there's too many people there. And that's the way these conferences go. But no, I'd say at this point you're, spending a lot of money that could easily be spent on other things or anything else, basically.
I think the biggest value I find it depends on the conference, obviously, and the price point and so on and so forth. This is one of the most expensive ones. It's more geared towards just sports analytics rather than sports betting. But nowadays, I think the majority of people I know just get a plane ticket, don't even get a conference ticket. They post up at the bar wherever the event's being held. And the value you get out of the networking, I find, is just way more it's just way more valuable than anything you would get from watching presentations or panels, basically.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, you're not going to get anything new from a panel with 1,000 people listening, but I totally agree with you. Going to the bar is definitely where the connections are made.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the kids that go there now are, university, college level students who are just like looking for jobs and stuff in sports business. And they're like, oh, I go here, I network, I can get a job, but I don't necessarily know that that's super true. I'm sure it does happen here and there with the people you would meet, but outside of that, I didn't have the best time.
So like me personally, I don't know how much of this you consume, Jason, but I love consuming the research papers every year. But it used to be that you would have to go to the events and there'd be people presenting them in the hallways, and maybe there was a research paper presentation. Now they're just basically posted online on the Sloan Analytics Conference website for free. And I find that that's just more valuable than as a sports bettor, that's more valuable takeaway than anything else I would get there.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to probably get better info out of the research papers than the panels at these points. There's still a lot of good stuff though. I mean, there's a lot of talented people putting out, new stuff in analytics and every field, every sport, but betting wise, no, I wouldn't waste the money.
All right, let's talk a little bit about betting right now. We are in the midst of baseball season. We had Adam Burke on last week who spoke highly of you. Is it fair to say you're primarily a baseball bettor at this point? I know you do a lot of stuff, but is baseball your go-to?
Yeah, I would definitely say baseball is the biggest thing. I play other sports when other sports are in season and there's action to be had, and I'll still bet. Like I always talk about how I bet recreationally on the NBA. I don't bet huge limits. I'm an awful NBA bettor, but I'll bet other stuff for fun. But for profit, for making money, it's mostly baseball.
Have you always been drawn to baseball? Because when you're telling us your story about growing up and originally losing, you basically said you were drawn to football at first. So what drew you to baseball in the first place? And like how did this evolution come into fruition where you ended up being a baseball bettor?
Yeah, I mean, so I was mostly into football for betting to begin with. Baseball had mostly, I didn't get back into baseball until I was in college, and I started playing fantasy baseball with a bunch of my friends. That sort of got me back into paying attention to baseball, got me into scouting prospects. Eventually got into baseball betting, just sort of coincidentally, I guess, with the chicken pox and everything. But mostly it stemmed from playing competitive fantasy baseball with my college friends is what got me into baseball, or back into baseball.
I think we're close to the same age, or at least in like a relative same area. And I think fantasy sports did that for a lot of us as well. Because I was in the same boat. Like I always loved all sports, but I would never really watch a baseball game from start to finish until I started playing fantasy. And when I first started playing fantasy on Yahoo and ESPN, you'd get the alert whenever one of your players came up to bat, and it was just like channel jumping, and I really got into the sport that way. But it's interesting to hear that from someone else as well. I think fantasy sports just did so much for all of these major sports leagues. You wonder how many of them would have even survived without fantasy sports.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, we've said it before, but if you're watching NFL right now and you have no action on the games betting wise, and you're not in fantasy, you don't play, not in a season long fantasy, you don't play DFS, it's very hard to watch. And that's in my opinion, the best sport in the world right now, which is the NFL. So it's funny, but it has brought like a level to the game that like now everyone's invested. And fantasy is like the cheapest way to do that. Put up maybe like $50 for a season long league, and you get to have fun for the whole season.
Yeah. Fantasy, the whole daily fantasy was really big for a while. And now I don't hear many people talking about it as much, but, I still play fantasy baseball. Even I don't play high stakes, but I still, care about beating my friends, and they generally still beat me. But I like fantasy baseball. I like most things revolving around baseball.
We've actually, whether you know this or not, have competed in some leagues together.
We were in like salary cap league and stuff for a while.
We were, yeah. Preston Johnson, another CirclesOff alum, used to run some Twitter fantasy baseball leagues. There was the Mexican kid Stevie, who's just like obsessed with analytics and stuff like that. That was very good at those pools. But yes, we have participated in leagues together. I was just wondering if you remember that, because that was many years ago, I think now.
Oh yeah, that was real complicated. That's too complicated.
There was too many rules. Like I just want a basic league where I don't have to, I don't have to spend a week modeling out the entire season and these different stat projections and stuff like that. That was way too complex. Way too complex. I want to pick up on something that you said, and we'll get back into baseball betting. But you are a self-proclaimed terrible NBA bettor. I don't know if you use terrible as the adjective, but a bad NBA bettor.
Awful.
Okay, awful. I'm very interested in that because typically speaking, someone who can win at one sport, and I know for a fact you're a winning baseball bettor, someone who could win at one sport tends to understand all of the principles to be able to win at betting at other sports. So why, in your opinion, or why do you think you've never been able to translate the same success from baseball into basketball?
I don't put much time into it. and I just kind of like, I want to bet a basketball game for action tonight. I'm going to take the Spurs or whatever. Like I don't really go too deep into it. And also I bet a lot of unders. So just when you bet unders in general, it's just like pain. So
So what are you betting mostly
maybe my
right
problem
now?
is the unders, not the basketball.
Maybe it is. So what are you betting mostly right now then? And I know you mentioned sports, but kind of what types of bets, what's the go-to here and there? Where do you got the edges?
Mostly sides, totals, and MLB. Obviously, still doing the props. Just a function of volume. Can't get crazy amounts down on first innings and hits, runs, errors, and strikeouts and all that stuff. I love betting them all though. Then doing a lot of futures because it's just with the advent of all the legal books the last couple years, there's just so many places to bet futures that didn't exist in the past. And you can get, huge volume down on something at 20-1 or 30-1. And that's big money if it comes in.
Now you're California based, correct?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm looking over first inning. Actually, the Giants just scored.
No problem.
Is that good or bad?
Oh, it's good.
It's
I
good,
had
yes.
I usually have the yes.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a good thing. So you're California based. You talk about leveraging legal books. You're in a state that isn't legal yet. So I'm assuming you have partnerships with people in other legal states right now.
Yeah. I mean, I live near the airport. I could always get to Vegas very quick. 90 minutes in and out basically from Burbank. So I can always get down myself if necessary, but there's other states, other people, other, plenty of ways to get down.
So you've personally, I guess, experienced a lot of these regulated gaming sites at this point.
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea how they work, the back ends, the different companies. I've spent a lot of time, I try to understand with the legal books, which operator, uses what software, what the limitations are. It's I always say, don't fear the man that knows, everything about all the sports books. Fear the customer that knows everything about your specific, software. Like right. I try to know the ins and outs of whatever books I'm using.
Understood. You probably can probably understand what I'm getting at with the line of questioning, but like for you would say that even though not in your state, regulated gaming has been a net positive on your personal betting.
Personally, it's been a net positive. I'm skeptical if it's been societal net positive. But personal, yes, I think, having all the books has been a fantastic addition.
So that's where I'm sort of going with this, because I followed you on Twitter for a long time, and you would probably admit that you're very openly critical of a lot of the regulated operators in the space right now. Like you said, you do your due diligence on everything. You try to understand what tech they're using, what's going on with every single book. But what is it primarily for you right now that is a source of frustration with the regulated operators?
I think it blows my mind that basically outside of Circa, there's not a posted limit that's just visible every time you're trying to make a bet on every site. Like it's almost it's unbelievable to me that you can, log in and it won't tell you what the limit is. And I've heard people, say, oh, I can get, $10,000 on a AAA baseball game at DraftKings or whatever. And I hear someone else say, well, I can get, $14.12. It's crazy to me that you can offer different limits to different customers and that there's no regulated authority that says this is wrong. That's such a imbalance towards the operator to be allowed to deal different limits to different customers. If a regulated licensed sports book should have to deal limits across the board to all customers. That's, to me, it's crazy that you can get licensed and not have a requirement like that. But that's a state by state sort of issue.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, I'll explain a little further. When Jason said posted limits and Circa being the only book that has that, what he's referring to is Circa Sports, which are currently, live in Iowa and in Nevada, as well as Colorado. So only 3 states right now. They have a posted limit sheet. And what that posted limit sheet basically says is anybody in the world can come and bet this amount. Now, it might be $500 on some things, right? It might be $100 on some things, and that's okay. But the reality is they have that. So no matter what, you will be able to get that. And then obviously on certain things, it might be 50,000, 5,000 or 100,000, depending on the magnitude of the event and the time of day. So when you walk into Circus Sportsbook, at any given time what you can bet, and you can always ask for more. Like you can, refer to a trader or just go in and be like, hey, would I be able to get double the limit? And they definitely might refuse you on the double limit, but at the very minimum, you're getting that bet size there. And the respect that entails in the industry is massive, because now you can count on them as a book that is not limiting winning players. They're limiting them to a certain extent by only allowing them to bet up to a limit sheet. However, by doing that, they're actually proving that we'll take anyone, we'll take all customers. We're not going to kick you out. We're not going to take only $1 from you. And as a result, they become one of the sharpest lines in the industry. So I just wanted to clarify that for anyone who might be a little bit of a newer better, not understand the concept of posted limits versus, a DraftKings who they don't have a posted limit sheet. So some accounts that they might grade a square might be able to bet 100,000. And then maybe Jason's account, who's been beating them on props, can only bet 14. So anyways, we'll kick it back to you, Jason. I didn't want to cut off, but I think it was super important to explain that.
Jason, I'm curious if you think that it's fair for a sportsbook to offer different limits to different people. Like let's say for example, the regulatory body stated, okay, sportsbooks now have to state how much they're taking on a bet. Do you think it would be fair for them to, for example, give you a large bet in NBA because you notoriously lose at it, but give Johnny a small bet in NBA? Like, where do you draw the line in terms of what the restrictions should be?
I think it's fine if a player wants to ask for a larger bet than the posted limit. Like if the limit's $10,000 and you want to bet $20,000, you can always ask and say, "Can I get 20 on it?" And more often than not, they'll probably say yes if they're a real bookmaker. But I mean, you should be willing to take a limit bet from a known sharp because that's your limit, and you use that bet as information to sharpen your own number. But if you want to take a larger bet, I don't have a problem with that. I don't think a book should, not be allowed to take a larger bet if requested, but they shouldn't be allowed to deal a lower limit to a known sharp is my issue.
So you're looking for equality more than anything.
Basically, I mean, in a regulated licensed environment, it shouldn't be tilted towards the operator, that egregiously.
Yeah.
So what do you think that a book could put in place though to actually execute on this? Like they don't currently have auto
limits,
but go ahead. Sorry.
If you want to have, a $2,000 limit, like using MLB, for example, you want to take like 2 dimes overnight and then go to 5 in the morning and then 10, when lineups get posted, like, don't have $10,000 limits overnight. If you're worried that a sharp's going to, beat you 20 cents on a baseball line, take 2 dimes overnight and wait and see if someone hits it and move it. Take 5 in the morning, take 10 when lineups come out. I'm just using 2, 5, and 10 as examples, but that's why limits exist, is so the bookmakers can kind of, move their numbers and not get beat up too badly too early. Like it's just, I think a lot of books, they want to skimp on the risk management. Yep. They want to skimp on having people, available in office to approve and, make, approve trades at odd hours. And you don't have that sort of, you don't have people working for you and you're trusting automation to do everything. Sometimes you're going to get beat, but I think that's what limits are for, is to help you sharpen your numbers before, so you're not booking too early at a, bad price to you.
Yeah. I go back and forth on this one a lot personally, because I don't think it's necessarily a fault of the operators themselves. I think it's a fault of the regulators in this instance, right? Because if you're a sports book, it's only common sense. You're running a business. At the end of the day, the reality is sportsbooks are running a business. And if they know someone's going to be able to beat them, well, why am I going to let this person beat me? I'm going to give them small limits. If I know someone's going to lose in the long run, I'm going to give them larger limits. And that's what I think any business person would do. The people who are running these companies are business people. They're responsible for getting their stock price up. They're responsible for revenue. So I completely get that. The issue I have is the regulatory bodies, most of whom are not sports bettors, know nothing about sports betting, who are allowing this to happen. Because in a sense, for me, it is predatory, right? It is, you want to bet on you losing better square A, want to bet on Major League Baseball? Sure, we'll take your $10,000 bet because we know you're going to lose in the long run. Like that's predatory behavior. And that's where I have an issue with it. But it's, you have to draw a line in the sand, and you have to say, for me, I can completely understand the sportsbook perspective. While I may not agree with that being the way to run a business, if you are allowed to do that, I totally see why someone would do that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the position of the operator and the limiting, and they're responsible to a board of directors and shareholders and share price, and all that stuff is stuff that I never take into account or ever even really consider, because I'm a bettor, not I'm not a management. But I think you're right that it is predatory. I think the regulatory bodies would tell you that those players are better off betting a legal book than being taken advantage of, by a gray market bookie. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if your business model is to book, squares at large volume and boot sharps, you'll probably be successful. But I don't think that's the best way to run an operation. And we've seen Circa kind of buck that trend, but otherwise people are content to do it this way.
But is Circa profitable? Like, are they more I'm not privy to the numbers, right? But like, is Circa right now turning a better, I guess, per player value than, DraftKings or a FanDuel?
I don't know that, one way or the other. I haven't seen any numbers that would tell me that.
I think they're probably doing a smaller ROI. Like, I think it's almost certainly that there's a smaller ROI.
Of course, smaller ROI, but I'm saying just in general, net profit per, like net gaming revenue, because they don't do a lot of bonuses. So let's say NGR, net gaming revenue per player that they have. Do you think it'd be higher or lower than DraftKings?
I would guess it's lower, if I had to guess. Because I think if it was higher, then you would see more people adopting that business model. Do you know what I'm getting at? I mean, this is just a complete guess for me. I think Circa is a great sportsbook.
It's harder for Circa to get players. That's the thing.
Acquisition is a problem when you're not bonusing players at the rate of other books. Even stuff like saying, and this is not, I don't want anyone to take this as me trashing Circa, because I have the utmost of respect for that sportsbook. They're a great sportsbook for me in general, who's looking to get down a lot of money on games. But I can see where there is a lack of mass appeal as well, right? If you don't offer as many markets, well, that's not going to, cater to a recreational bettor. I had a back and forth in my Twitter timeline between Jeff Benson, who's the operations manager at Circa, and some guy named Taco T-Bone or something like that, who's just like a bettor that was supporting Barstool Sportsbook. He made some good points about you're not offering the same amount of markets, and I completely get it. So I think there's all sorts of different business models that can work overall. But does the honest approach like Circa resonate with the average person? And I'm not sure that it does. I really appreciate what they're doing in market, but I think for a lot of people, sadly, they don't even care. It's like, well, Circa's not offering this type of prop on this game, I'm just going to go bet it elsewhere. Rather than, okay, this book's not going to take advantage of me.
Well, no same game parlays. Yeah. Not the same level of offering as you can't go to Circa and bet like Bo Bichette to get 3 home runs today.
Right.
And again, those are juiced to the nines at any other book, but you at least can bet that. So it is a little bit, it's different. But I mean, I'm a big supporter of Circa. I think it's definitely the fairest book by a fair mile in the regulated space.
I think legal betting has shown across these different markets that most consumers aren't particularly price sensitive when it comes to this book's dealing 6.5 minus 110, and Circa's dealing 6, minus 105, people are still going to bet the 6.5, 15 because it's more convenient. It's, there's not as many price shoppers and sharps as we think there are. There's a lot of people who just want to get some action down.
Yeah. And then they'll go drive 10 miles extra to save 15 cents on gas after the fact.
Yep.
I mean, it's a weird, I don't know why this concept of price sensitivity has never made its way into sports betting. Maybe it's just the inconvenience factor, but what really gets me, and I think this is something that really bothers you, I understand the sportsbook side of things. I really do. It's not the way I would run a sportsbook necessarily, but when you are accountable to shareholders and you have to make revenue, you're going to do what you can. What I cannot stand is when you get the CEO of the sportsbook publicly speaking about how we do not want to accept winning players. Like, you're basically coming out to the forefront and saying, if you are a loser, you can bet here. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's exactly what the message is. And I don't understand how anyone could come out and publicly say that. It is just like a complete slap in the face to pretty much the entire user base. And that's what really drives me crazy, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising when you hear stuff like that. And, we've heard it from more than one CEO this past year. It's kind of saying the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud sort of deal. It's like you hear stuff like that. Or another one I hear frequently is that the sports book is just a way to sign people up to funnel them into the iGaming casino. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're not supposed to say that. Like, I know it's true, but you're not supposed to give away the end game like that. And then if you look at the numbers, that the online casino revenue just the sports betting revenue dwarfs what is lost by people on online casino stuff. It's some CEOs understand that they're playing a long game here, and some just are kind of clueless in what it takes to run a profitable casino business or sports betting business. It is a hard and challenging market. I mean, it's not just printing money, but I think a lot of people don't understand that sports betting is a incredibly low margin business, and there's not very many ways to increase that margin and keep your customers, happy. Gotta maintain customers. You can't just blow them out all the time.
Yeah, which is why I think some of the business models out there, which are like, completely advocating for parlays all the time. Yeah, I mean, you're going to win more in the long run, but, it's not a great experience for someone to lose all their money betting parlays in a short amount of time because they're not hitting at a win rate. So I think that there's a happy balance there. It's obviously very challenging. Like I did Bet the Process with Rufus and Jeff a couple weeks ago. We had a similar conversation, but on a sportsbook side of things, your goal is to make money, but you're only ever going to make money at the expense of the player. Like, there's no other way for you to do it. So how do you maintain that happy balance? And that's like a very difficult question to answer because there really is not a way of doing so. At the end of the day, if someone's coming in and depositing into your sportsbook and then donking off a bunch of money in the casino, what do you do as someone who's running a business? Do you just say, no, we're not going to let you bet anymore because you're losing too much money? When you are accountable for revenue, it's really a very tricky landscape to navigate overall.
Yeah, I mean, that comes down to sort of your opinion on the morality of gambling and being involved in the gambling business. You're definitely, in a sense, preying on, people who are losing, but that's just, you have to either be okay with that or not. If you're not, then you're in the wrong business.
Even from a better side, we're not really contributing a whole lot to society either, if we're being honest with ourselves.
No, not really. I mean, we're just providing liquidity to a market.
Yeah.
It's not really society beneficial now.
I personally, I don't know if, Johnny, you've ever had that, like, if you've ever thought about the morality of being a bettor. It's crossed my mind before as well, though. Like, you have people out there who are making good incomes, being doctors and whatever. And it's like, I'm sitting at my computer on my mobile phone, placing bets. Like, what am I contributing to the overall economy? I guess I do spend that money in the economy. You know, I support the travel industry.
Did you donate $2 to Ukraine?
I donate money to diabetes research. That's like my way of giving back. But overall, relative to someone else in the space, I didn't donate money to the Ukraine. Now I will donate money now that you've put me on the spot. I almost have to now, but not that I don't think it's a good cause. But
yeah. what I got to put this guy on the spot here.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I guess I'm not at a stage yet. I mean, hopefully I will care about, like changing the world and stuff. It's a big task, like you got to get your footing first before you can start talking about like all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what am I going to do right now?
It's just a larger conversation for me of, I'm very critical of sports books at times as well, or how other people run their businesses that are maybe competitors to betstamp, for example. But from a personal level, I do have to take a step back every now and then and say like, I do what I can. I try to raise money for charity. I do cameos where I donate to charity. Please request me on Cameo. That would be appreciated as well. If you want me to say a happy birthday or something like that. But from being a pure bettor.
Wait, how many cameos have you gotten?
I don't know, like a dozen.
You got 12 guys paid for your cameo?
I had one guy this week who requested me to give him tips, give his buddy tip. His buddy's getting married. Give him tips on how he can place bets and not ruin his marriage. I'm not even joking. In which case I said, I believe you're married too, Jason, or you have a serious girlfriend?
Yeah, not married.
Yeah. I was basically like, you got to like a lot of bathroom breaks, you might have ate,
Yeah.
Your stomach's not, whatever we ate, it's not going so good. I'm just in the washroom, just like firing off bets for 10 minutes, Then you can make another, if you execute that properly, you can kind of get that going over the course of the entire night. Half hour later, you're still not feeling well. Meds didn't kick in. Obviously, you haven't taken any meds. Obviously, you're feeling fine, but you can, get to the washroom again.
So you're saying the first break should be a setup for at least 4 or 5 future breaks, as opposed to just having to make a new excuse every time.
Of course. Now, my wife has probably noticed that since we got married, I've had a lot more stomach issues than pre-marriage when we weren't living together. But it is the pro move. Like, what else do you do to get away when you need to place bets? That's the go-to, right?
I just whip out my phone and start doing it. Like I was at the farmer's market on Sunday morning. I was like, got to make some baseball bets real quick. I'll catch up to you in a minute. If you go to the bathroom, the problem with the bathroom strategy is everyone starts suspecting you're a cocaine addict if you make too many trips to the bathroom.
Well, he's using the regular strategy. That must be true love. You can just pull out the phone and place bets, no issues.
Yeah, I mean, you got to desensitize them to it. After a while, they get used to it.
See, that's I think the smarter move. I can't go back in time. But when I was, my wife now was my girlfriend when I was younger, and she knew me at the beginning as a degenerate gambler. So over time, I was trying to like not be on my phone all the time, watching games on my phone, placing, like my buddies are at weddings watching the games because they got so much money on it and they're sweating and they won't get up and go dance and stuff like that. I had to prove that I was over that, even though I'm not. But I'm obviously not losing at this point, which is the difference. But I'm not over the desire to bet, especially like live every now and then. But that's been my trick. I think it's a very easy one and people should use it. You just, you plant the seed early on in the night. Not feeling so well. Stomach's been bothering me a little bit. Don't know what I ate. My wife, well, we ate the exact same thing. I'm feeling fine. I'm like, well, I had some, might have ate something else. Oh, I put the hot sauce on it and you didn't. That must be what's causing it.
I'll tell you how big of a scumbag I am.
Yes, exactly. That's my move.
Drop.
That's
okay,
my move.
Jason, we want to talk about futures betting. Notoriously, I've talked on this podcast about how I don't typically bet futures, so I don't really want to tie up the credit. I know what you do and what I've seen you post about is, actually betting in person over the counter, which I do actually agree with. I will preface. So if you just have, let's say, some cash, you walk into Vegas, let's say you walk into Circa over the counter, put $5,000 down cash, and then walk out with $5,000 worth of tickets. I do think that is a fine approach, but I wanted to get your thoughts on You mentioned, a lot of the legal outs now being able to get down a lot on the futures. Where does this come in? How are you like finding these edges? How much what are you getting down? What's the whole process there for futures, if you don't mind sharing?
So the first thing with the getting down with the credit, I mean, that's just a function of your relationship with the outs that you're betting at. For example, I have one out that I could just bet whatever I want on futures, not whatever I want, limit wise, but if I bet $5,000 on futures, I'm just going to ask the guy for 5,000 more credit and he's going to give it to me. Like the credit is, basically unlimited credit at 0%. So it's really about the terms of the credit you're using to bet and the risk of a default if you win too much money. Because, you can always just win $50,000 and the guy is not going to pay you and say, fuck off, or, you're booted, whatever. That's rarely ever happened to me with the places that I bet futures. But I also try to limit it.
Like a PPH shop, I think then it's not the wisest move for people right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not on, you don't have a good relationship with PPH you're using, you don't really know the guy, you haven't really met him very often, and then you're definitely risking not getting paid. And then the legal books, obviously, posting up is a little bit more of a challenge for people because not everybody can just post up, $500 here, $500 here, $1,000 here, $5,000 here. It adds up quickly. Even if you're betting, and I've talked about this before during NFL season. If you bet NFL futures every week of the football season, it's 17 weeks now. $200 a week. You're into the futures for over $3,000, $3,400, whatever. Even more than that, if every $100 is exponentially another $1,700, whatever. Not a lot of people have access to the capital needed to necessarily attack the futures market, which is a limitation, especially if now we're getting into the point where there's 20 different legal sports books or whatever, and you can get a lot down. So you do definitely run into the capital limitation on the post up side, but if you can overcome that, and there are plenty of ways to overcome limited capital. But I mean, you could just find books. For example, I think the Westgate, the Superbook, does a pretty good job keeping their futures updated quickly. Not necessarily instantly, but on a day-to-day basis, they'll update their numbers, and you'll see a guy who's 5-1 for Cy Young and still 20-1 at other books. And it's not necessarily rocket science at that point to know, potentially I should bet some more on this guy. But basically I make most of my positions in the preseason. Like I have the guys I want to bet. I find the numbers I want. Once the season starts, you'll see the market start to drift. Like Vlad Guerrero Jr., for example, is currently 20-1 for MVP. So, you'll see odds on players drift up and down. I'll occasionally bet more in season on a guy who's performing really well, like Mookie Betts, for example. He was like 20-1, 25-1 for MVP, and like CJ Cron was 16-1. And I was just looking at the numbers. I was like, there's no way Betts should be below CJ Cron, as I think at the Superbook as well. But sometimes it's not rocket science. Sometimes it's just kind of looking at the statistics and seeing that somebody is undervalued to how they're playing. And then sometimes it's just scouting ahead of time. Rookie of the year stuff's just scouting.
I'm curious about like the breakdown in terms, because you obviously mentioned price shopping, which me and Johnny are huge advocates of, where you just see off-market prices, bet them type of thing. But it also sounds like, especially with the preseason, you go into the season knowing that there are certain guys that you might want to just, you think are undervalued across the entire market and not just at one specific book, for example. So what's the breakdown of that? Like how much of your actual futures betting is just purely, I'm going to pick off these bad prices versus how much is, I'm going to take a stance on this player?
Well, I'd say it starts with the taking stances on players, because I'll always, I'll look at a market like Justin Verlander, for example. Like he's a guy I took standoff. He's going to beat me. He's going to beat me. And right now it looks like he's pitching pretty well. But you can't bet every single guy, like it's same thing with golf. Like you can, if you bet 5 golfers, the 6th one's going to win. If you bet 6 golfers, the 7th one's going to win. Like you can't bet every guy you want to bet every week. So I do take a stand against guys, Garrett Cole beat one of them this year, Shane Bieber, another one. Like there's just certain guys, like if they're going to beat me, they're going to beat me. But I try to keep a fairly limited basket. You don't want to go too deep and have, $500 on 10 different guys as opposed to having, $1,000 on 3 guys or whatever. But I try to focus my money on the right guys. And obviously the odds are important, but it also depends. Sometimes the field, like for the AL MVP, there's Ohtani, there's Trout, there's Aaron Judge, Jose Ramirez. After that, like you can make cases for like Byron Buxton or whoever else, but the market's already telling you there's really top 3 or 4 guys, and the award is limited to them. So sometimes the market kind of solves itself earlier than other times, and you can kind of pick off the you kind of know what the contenders are. And there's market like the NL Rookie of the Year this year, where Seiya Suzuki shot out to an odds-on favorite after like the first week, and he's done absolutely nothing since then. So there's 10, 12 different guys in the National League that could potentially make a big run. And in that case, like you can't bet all 10 or 12. You narrow it down to a couple guys you want at the big numbers, and then you're content if the other guys beat you. But the markets tend to kind of paint the picture for you of whether or not it's a top heavy market or if there's value further down.
Interesting. You mentioned a lot of stuff about baseball this season and how the markets have shifted. I'm curious as to what your biggest takeaways are so far from this season. In particular, obviously the talk around the baseball. I know players have been way more outspoken about this being a joke. I think that was actually a quote from someone that I saw recently. But has the new ball, for one, affected your enjoyment of the game? And number 2, like how has it affected your betting of the game?
It hasn't really affected me that much. It was more annoying in the past when we had the over balls, the every hit's a home run sort of thing. And I personally prefer a dejuiced ball because I don't like it when, half the league has second baseman hitting 30 home runs. And, you just I appreciate actual power hitters versus everybody having cheap power. So it really hasn't affected me that much. It's not like I blanket bet unders or I blanket bet overs. I did notice like just prop derivatives, like first innings, the totals being lower overall leads to better prices, on the S scores. But no, I think the most annoying thing is like a day like yesterday that had, higher than average scoring. It just plants sort of the seed in your mind that the ball's changed, that they're using a different batch. And I don't I just try to stay consistent. Like, no, it's not what happened, just it's variance, high scores happen. But then you see a Sunday night game like the Cardinals Giants game a couple weeks ago where Carlos Rodon got shelled. Like there's no way you could tell me that wasn't a different ball. Like that guy was pitching lights out all season. All of a sudden he's just getting smashed on national TV. Like that's a different ball.
I don't bet baseball anymore, at least not at a serious level. That would drive me insane. It did drive me insane in the juiced ball era. It's actually part of the reasons I stopped betting baseball overall. It just became, the volatility was crazy at that time. But yeah, I can totally see myself seeing like 2 or 3 days of higher scoring and wondering if there's been like a change in dynamic across the league, and literally pulling my hair out and questioning every single move that I'm making. Whereas like this doesn't really happen in other sports. I mean, we had Deflategate with the NFL, but you don't get different pucks in hockey. You don't get, different basketball or anything. And it always seems to be a topic of conversation with baseball betting. So I don't I mean, I don't know how you do it, Jason. I really don't. I struggle with that for years, but I guess you're just taking a lot of personal enjoyment out of trying to solve these problems.
The nice thing, with the baseball, or at least with the juice ball, was that all you had to do was bet all the overs. In this case, it's a little more annoying, but I think the futures, you're talking about futures. I think having a big futures portfolio is kind of good to balance out the day-to-day variance, because like yesterday, I didn't have the best day yesterday. I had a lot of unfortunate toss-up losses, like the Mets, I guess. I don't know if that wasn't technically fortunate. I was even lucky to be in that game. But like I had the Mets yesterday, I had Baltimore yesterday. I had a bunch of unfortunate losses pile up, but I also, like Julio Rodriguez hit another home run, and that gets me excited about my rookie of the year future, that I see it go lower. Like I see the market go lower, and I kind of describe it like it's the joke about your Ferrari going over the cliff with your mother-in-law in it. Like that's what it's like to have a lot of futures and have a losing day, so I lost I lost yesterday, but my futures equity is up. So you're always just
are you
looking
tracking
at the
that on
bright side.
on a I guess weekly basis? Like, are you tracking like the updated numbers of like, yeah, I had this guy at like 100-1 and he's now
Oh yeah, I'm
running
running circles around some of these books, so I'm doing it on a daily basis. Like
Amazing.
I know that they know that I'm running circles around them too. Like so I enjoy it. I mean, it's fun for me. Like the winning's fun. The just knowing that they're adjusting to stuff I'm saying on my podcast or I'm tweeting, like, they're clearly adjusted. There's somebody listening at some of these books, or either they're following my tweets. It's very funny to me.
I would just want to say I hold no ill will towards my mother-in-law personally. She's a very nice lady, and I think she's listened to a couple of these episodes. Hopefully
his father-in-law, he's very cheap though,
he's very cheap, my father-in-law. He has a good heart, but he is very cheap for sure. I'm sidetracking here. The power's been out, and Southern Ontario got hit with a massive thunderstorm this week. I got like a thunderstorm warning on my phone. I was laughing. I'm like, haha, this is what my tax money's going towards. Thunderstorm warning. A minute later, my entire house was shaking. Trees are down, everything like that. But my father-in-law refused to go out for food. Like he had no power in his house, was just making peanut butter sandwiches the entire week. I'm like, Carlo, you can go out, like the restaurants are open now. And he's like, no, I'll be fine. This guy's just eating peanut butter sandwiches for the entire week. It's not because he enjoys the peanut butter sandwiches. Let me just put it that way. It is a monetary thing, but
surviving off the land.
He is surviving off the land. I do want to ask you, because this is something that I know you're very passionate about, and you mentioned it already, in terms of, I'll call it the NRFI wars this year, the no runs first inning. There's a lot of people in the space that are now popping up out of nowhere, advocating for no run first inning bets and advocating for them as good bets. I'm interested in your commentary on that.
Yeah, I think I've talked a bunch about how that's a sign that whoever is doing the content probably has no clue what they're doing and has no interest in actually helping you become a better bettor or win money. They're trying to just create content, and they I see a lot of it, and most of it's very bad, which isn't to say that there's never a situation where you should bet a no score, or that you can't compute the price of the fair value of a no score, because you can. It's just that these people aren't doing it. They're literally throwing darts at something, and usually they're throwing a dart at something that's weighted minus 135 or 150 or even worse. And it's like, I don't even know, because I try not to say things too mean about it, but like it just shows such a failure in the creation of content at every level, from the people doing it to the editors and the people allowing it, and their reasons for doing it. I totally understand that the business is driven by clicks, and this is how you get eyeballs on stuff, but long term, you are not doing anything beneficial to your customer. And in fact, you're teaching them bad habits. And some people will say, well, the book, that actively says we want bad bettors would, benefit from teaching them bad habits. And you're like kind of right. But I think When we talk about sports betting being a low margin business, you're better off, getting reoccurring revenue from a customer long term than busting them out for a $500 deposit once. The goal is to get them to lose multiple $500 deposits over time, not a single one. And I think these people, they're going to eventually sour on betting because they're losing so often. And especially when you're laying 135 or minus 150, like there's this guy who has a column for the Action Network. It comes out every day and it's a no score and it loses on Monday, loses on Tuesday. You're laying minus 150 on each one of these. You're down 3 units now on Wednesday or whatever. You're going to go 5-0 the rest of the week and make it back. How many of these do you have to lose in a row before you realize you're not going to make any money doing this? This kind of thing. I see these people, clearly just trying to harvest users and using this as content. I know it's wrong. Like it's bad info. It's bad advice. It's bad content. And sometimes, personally, my favorite thing to do is bet against it because, they usually lose and I can get a good number on the other side. But I try not to spend too much time paying attention to it because it puts me on like a rage tilt. And then I don't want it to affect my actual betting. I want to focus on, winning and not shitty content.
Right.
Well, you are right. Because like winning at betting is fun. Losing at betting is not fun. So when people say like, I just bet for fun, you're still betting to win. And like, I do hate when people say like, I just bet for fun. So I'm not trying to really learn. I just bet for fun. It's like, where's the fun? It's like exactly what you're saying. Where's the fun in tailing some guy losing 3 in a row? You don't have fun watching that bet. I know for a fact, especially if it's a no run first inning, that's over in a jiff, right? Like no one goes to the blackjack table with $1,000, plays 2 hands, $500 each, loses them both, and says, that was a ton of fun.
I had a ton of fun. I lost my double down. I had a ton of fun in doing so.
Nobody goes, places one bet, doubles down on that first bet for 500, then 500 again, loses $1,000, walks out of the casino. Is like, that was a ton of fun. It's never happened. So I agree with Jason. It's like the goal for a sports book, by the way, is if you can, and I will say this transparently and openly for myself as well, is like bet. Like I want people who are gonna bet to probably lose more money in the long run, or stay alive longer. However, I want them to sustain an amount of fun that far exceeds the amount that they paid in money, if that makes sense.
Yep.
For example, I might say, okay, I have $100 a year to spend on betting or to lose on betting, let's say. But if I can now have fun every football Sunday and all it costed me was $100, that's an absolute home run, because I might win 150 this year and then next year I might lose 250. And sure, yeah, net I lost $100, or maybe I lose 200 over 2 years or something like that, but it's up here, down here, up here, down here, constantly having fun every single Sunday. My entertainment value is through the roof. Like it's a home run deal. Like, how much it costs? Like, look, inflation, man.
You're maximizing the length of your bankroll and you're accruing entertainment value in the process, rather than just, blowing your load in the first couple weeks or so. And
you know how much a golf membership is nowadays?
Yeah, I unfortunately know.
With inflation.
And I'm older than you, so yeah.
But seriously though, like the amount of the cost of like entertainment right now is super high, and like actually betting smart with a low synthetic hold is the cheapest form of entertainment you can get, especially when you're still able to achieve that level of like sweat factor from betting like 50 cents on a game, which is the best. I wish I could go back there.
I think unfortunately the Pat McAfee deal with FanDuel, Pat McAfee, I think it was towards the end of last year, signed a 4-year, $120 million deal with FanDuel. So $30 million annually, has affected a lot of the content in the space, in that you now see content creators chasing that sort of deal with sportsbooks. I'm just calling you out the way that I see it. I could be completely wrong about it, but I see tons of people who are trying to just build brands that are catered towards getting people betting. That's the sad reality of things. I could never do that myself, in the sense I could never knowingly lead a sheep to the slaughter, but I think Jason, unfortunately, for me, that was, maybe I'm wrong, but the turning point in that now you just see this stuff and people posting this stuff. And what it sadly created for guys like us is that we're like in the minority, right? Sometimes I'll call this stuff out and I just get swarmed by like 30 people who are at the defense of the content. Oh, they're posting it for free. Oh, they're putting a lot of work into it. And it's like, okay, it's worthless. Like, I can do work for free too. I can try to fix someone's car for free. If it doesn't drive, then like, what good is it? And unfortunately, we see more and more of it nowadays.
Well, this actually,
it's a losing battle.
Well, you're on VSiN, Jason, so I wanted to let's bridge this real quick. Tell everyone what kind of content you provide on VSiN and how it might be a little different than this stuff.
Well, so I'm a guest on Gil's show most frequently, usually twice a week during the baseball season. I do spots with some of the other hosts on occasion. But what I like about VSiN is they essentially give me, pretty wide freedom to talk about whatever I want sports wise, whether it's baseball or, senior tour, golf, whatever I'm betting on, I can kind of talk about. I do talk a lot about futures because I think a lot of the time, like I'll give you an example. I was on this morning. Gil asked me some of the baseball games I bet today. And I said, I bet Baltimore. I bet Baltimore last night at like plus 194. It's plus 148 this morning. The number is just way gone. It's not the same bet. It's not like we're talking, I bet something at 190, it's plus 185. I bet something at 190 and it's plus 148. It's way off. And I said, I bet Baltimore last night, but you can't bet it now. It's moved too far out of playable range. You're not getting any value there. So I talk about futures a lot on air because similar to what you were saying about the getting the value out of your bankroll for recreational bettors, with future, they're more widely available, especially the people listening to VSiN, most likely going to be in a legal betting state. They can go and match the number at one of the 20 different books that's available wherever they are. And I usually give out, what books the numbers are available at, or the closest numbers. And that way, like, they can get down on the bet, that there's enough, it's not necessarily going to move after one person hits it, especially if a lot of people are betting small amounts of money on it. But that way you could share stuff with people that they can actually, use and get value out of. Because telling somebody to bet Baltimore 40 cents later, 50 cents later, like, it doesn't do them any good. Like, I can't help somebody, giving out baseball lines necessarily at 8 a.m. when I bet them 12 hours ago. Futures, it's a much more, it's much easier to explain to people why I like something and that they could bet it before it moves.
Yeah, I never actually really factored that in. That's very, if you're giving out a pick and you're giving out a futures bet, it's something that is probably going to be available because, like, you have to be betting. You can't be giving out a future for like NBA championship right now, mid-game tonight, Celtics versus Heat. Like, that's not going to be available. But let's say you give it out this morning, that's probably not going to move up till game time. So people can actually widely get that. I actually respect that. That's very, very smart. A different opinion.
But also, like, the enjoyment factor too, right? Like, you've now prolonged your bet where you can get multiple.
And it's a bigger payout if you win typically.
I have bet, for example, home run leaders in MLB before. Every time your guy hits a dong, you're ecstatic. Like, I follow that baseball home runs account on Twitter, set notifications. My guy hits a home run. You prolong your enjoyment. I like, there's pros and cons to everything, but
but what happens if your thing's out? Like, your guy could be done.
Undone for the season.
2 weeks. No, he could be done 2 weeks in. Yeah, out for the season.
Oblique strain. Oh God, 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, I guess I'm looking at it.
Anyways, though, giving out a future is actually a very interesting concept. I think if I were to give out ever like picks and stuff like that, just in a general capacity regularly, it would have to be futures because you could actually get down on those, as Jason's mentioning.
Agreed. You said you mentioned that one of the nice things about VSiN is that you get to talk about whatever you bet on. And for me, we had met years ago. Me and Jason had met in Vegas with Preston at the Palace Station Oyster Bar, which always has like a 1 hour wait no matter what time of day you go, but I would highly recommend regardless. But we have had a conversation that was the extent of our relationship for a long time. And then I started to know you as in the underground betting circles as the Mexican baseball guy or the Japanese baseball guy. And I'm curious, those obviously KBO, Japanese, KBO Korean, but got a lot of attention during COVID because it was still going on. There was a time where a lot of people were being able to bet it. Are you still betting those leagues? I know you mentioned AAA baseball earlier. I'm very interested about that as well. But do you look at the smaller baseball leagues? Are you still able to get down on those?
I never did Korean before before COVID or during COVID. It was never my thing in Korea or Japan, mostly just because on the West Coast, the time difference between here and the Far East, like it just doesn't ever match up with the hours I want to be paying attention to baseball. So I've never been able to get into Korea or Japan long term. And if there were futures markets or like MVP or home run leader, I'd probably pay attention more, but there aren't, so I don't. The Mexican baseball stuff was very lucrative for a while. It's dried up for the most part. I mean, you can still make some money betting it. Like if you had enough accounts and just wanted to spend all day paying attention to Mexican baseball, you can probably still make some money. It's not really my thing anymore. AAA, I still follow. I was definitely more into it before COVID. COVID kind of screwed it up because we lost a whole year, and they came back, and now they play these like 6-game series which go on for a week, and I prefer the previous travel schedule. I don't like it when you're playing the same team for 6 days, 10 days in a row. But the way I look at Mexican baseball, AAA baseball, Winter League baseball, I used to do Dominican Winter League and Mexican Winter League. I've done Nicaragua, Venezuela, the Series Caribe. I've even done some Cuban baseball. I don't know how these lines originate, but like I did love betting Cuban baseball because like the team Fidel Castro's team, Grandma, like they're in the championship and they were like even money down 2 runs, and it's just like, who's gonna win, the team that's favored by the Cuban government or these other guys? Like, well, I'm just gonna keep live betting these guys. Obviously they came back and won, like as it always was gonna
it's like
happen,
it's like when Putin played like the KHL All-Star game or something like that. It's like, and like, he scored like 8 goals or something ridiculous, right?
There was a game, I don't remember exactly what it was in the World Cup, but like it was a Russian game where like Putin was in the stands. I was like, there's no way Russia will lose this game. Like, I don't know anything about anything. I don't know who they're playing. I know Russia is going to win this game. Like, they will not lose with Vladimir Putin sitting there watching the game. Like, it's just sometimes in foreign countries, you have to think like that when you're betting, especially when it comes to like championships and stuff.
That's funny about that Cuban baseball.
Throw out your models, and you just got to go with what is the common sense approach.
The oligarch model. I had that for UEFA Europa League for a while. But so the thing with the foreign baseball and the winter leagues and stuff, the way I describe betting on it and why I don't do it anymore and why I used to do it is it's the same reason that players play Winter League baseball or AAA baseball or Mexican baseball, is because you need the money, you need the experience, or you're working on something new in the off season that you want to try out, before spring training. So at this point, I don't necessarily need the money. I'm also not particularly interested in it anymore. I'm not working on anything new, and I don't need the reps. So nowadays, I would much rather focus on Major League Baseball and have my, November, December, January, February to do whatever I want, as opposed to following what's going on in the Dominican Republic and what's going on in Mexico. And, it's lucrative if you're working your way up, but at a certain point, there's other things to focus on.
How much ball are you actually watching, like MLB?
Very little. You would probably be shocked if I told you, like, honestly, I don't even know the last game I watched. I typically watch Shohei Ohtani's pitching starts. I'm blacked out. Dodger games are blacked out in LA, and I can get around it. Like it's pretty easy. You can get a VPN and stream them or whatever. But I just like they're blacked out. Like they don't want me to watch.
You don't
it,
have the
fine.
regular
Like,
cable.
I don't want to watch Dodgers either. Like I'm not a Dodger fan, so
Do you have
no.
regular cable though?
No, do I have regular cable? I have a Roku with all the I have logins.
We don't want to get
every-
this guy in trouble
No, so
with
you're
his
like-
local law enforcement or anything like that. We can
Okay, we'll
cut
cap
the
that out.
streaming questions.
You're
you
like
know,
Rob. You're like Rob. No, I assume he pays for MLB.TV. The
Of course, the official MLB app.
No, I'm sure he actually does. Then because the
I
Dodgers
use
games are blacked
Joey
out.
Isaac's brother's MLB login. I've been using it for like 3 years. So
They
thanks,
still
Joey.
haven't cut down on the multiple accounts yet. I mean, we used to do that back in the day. There was like 10 of us on the same account at one time.
for
So
MLB.
I'm sure. I can't believe they haven't cut down on that yet. There must be like a maximum amount of logins.
I used to actually do that as well and share it with a buddy.
Of course,
for
why
MLB
wouldn't you?
TV. But the Jays games are blacked out.
Yeah.
Same deal.
yeah, it was annoying. You can only get like,
So like the
rating.
one thing you want to watch, you can't watch, right?
Yeah, and then you have to get the regular cable for those, and then they got me. I just get the regular cable now. So I listen. I want the I'm betting on sports. I also like watching sports. I'll pay whatever it is for cable per month so that I can actually just watch all of the sports on my TV with no leg, and that's it. It is what it is. I know other people disagree with that, but I don't even want to be. Forget about legal, illegal, whatever. I don't even want to be sifting through streams and doing all that just to have them. Like I just don't even want to deal with that.
But sometimes for like certain foreign events, like even though I could afford to just get cable or whatever, like it's fun to find like a stream, for some like third division soccer or whatever foreign thing I'm betting on, and seeing all the crazy people in the chats, and like sometimes you just want to
Fair
get
enough.
back to your roots and
I think
and
I was-
do it the old way.
Yeah, I think earlier this year, or last year, sorry, I was streaming college football, and it was like a really small market school that I had a bet on that I wanted to sweat out. Like I needed a backdoor cover, so I found the stream for it, and I swear they were playing in literally basically a stadium that was like equivalent to like our high school, like it was like outdoor stadium with like those fold up bleachers. They were playing in. I don't even know what division this was, but I ended up watching the last drive, and the TV quality was so bad. I'm like, okay, these are ones you just gotta bite the bullet and stream them, and that's it. Ads, X'd out 17 ads in a row, volume up, the chat's all there,
I hate the chat.
ruining the game
I
for you.
hate it.
Touchdown.
You got the trolls in the chat who are always just there to. Oh, it's brutal. I hate the chats on the streaming sites.
They're like game over, touchdown.
I'm at the guy I'm at the game. I'm at the game. It's done. Whatever. Like oh man, I can't deal with that. But yeah, I mean that's sometimes you just want to watch something, man. That's how I stream all those like celebrity boxing events and stuff. I'm not paying for the pay-per-view for
Triller pay-per-view. Okay, that one fine. Stream that. That's fair.
Yeah. All right, Jason, you've been generous with your time. We'll end it here. We'll ask you the one question we ask to all of our guests at the end of their interviews. If you could go back in time, let's say 5 years, and talk to a previous version of yourself, what piece of advice would you give to your old self?
5 years, so we're talking like 2017.
Sure, we can give or take, but if you were talking to a previous version of yourself, one piece of life advice that your old self would
He's
give
trying to
your
calculate the Bitcoin price.
That's
I can
what
tell. He's like,
Yeah, no,
when
don't-
in
we can't get
2017?
another
sell the
Bitcoin answer. Yeah.
It's
Don't
like, when
sell the
in
Bitcoin,
2017?
Obviously, that'd be the.
Don't
if I had,
buy a
like, 5
pizza.
seconds,
Don't buy a pizza with Bitcoin.
I would just say don't sell the Bitcoin. There was you were talking about minor league baseball. Like, I don't even want to. You wouldn't believe it. Like, I'm sure you would because we all have crazy stories. But like, the amount of money I was getting paid in Bitcoin for minor league baseball at one point, like, would easily make me a millionaire right now. And I sold it for relatively not millions of dollars. I mean, I still have like those books behind me and stupid shit I bought with it, but I certainly don't have millions of dollars that definitely a more responsible person would have. But I don't know, I wouldn't I don't think I would
You
necessarily
can read
tell
those
my
books and
5-year
make $1 million from those books.
I wouldn't tell my 5 year ago self to do much differently because I still more or less have gotten to the places I wanted to go and do the things I want to do. So not much different. I necessarily would have changed, maybe a couple presidential election bets. I haven't won every future I've made. Had some misfires here and there, but overall I wouldn't say anything different 5 years ago. Doesn't seem that long ago. 10 years ago, I probably would have had more to say to 10 year ago, Jason. But
So what would you say to 10 year ago then? What's a piece of actionable advice that a young kid listening to this pod could draw from?
Go do anything else besides gambling. If you're doing it, you have to really love it. And if you're good at it, you're probably good at other things that are more valuable to society. But I mean, it's really, if you're into the gambling, like you're doing it because you think you can just make lots of money doing it and no other reason. You have to have fun doing it though. Like make sure you're always having fun with what you're doing, because once gambling stops being fun, and I don't mean like having fun every day, but I mean like if you're not enjoying the stuff you're betting on, then you're probably going to start losing money a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's well said. And I think a lot of people can take away some important stuff from that. And I just want to say before we close off, this guy was actually like the biggest minor league and foreign league baseball bettor. At one period of time, it was so absurd. It took me so long to connect the dots that this was you, Jason. But I literally had people reaching out to me on a daily basis of like, I got this Mexican baseball that can't lose. Like we literally will not have a losing week. You need to give me every account you have. I'd be like, I'm not doing it. I'm not putting Mexican baseball on these accounts. 2 days later, like another guy. And it was happening forever, but then it was all these different leagues as well. And it took me forever to piece it together. Probably could have made a lot of money with you at that time if I wasn't so ignorant. But it's just funny that years later, I figured out that it was actually you. It took like a lot of sleuth work, which I'm good at, but it started with like, oh, it's this California guy, he's in a bunker or something like that. It's the funniest stories I would hear about you. And then finally, like it was, I don't remember what the light bulb moment was for me, but I'm like, I know that guy. I had like an oyster dinner with that guy at some point or something, and I pieced it all together. But yes, definitely one of the biggest minor league and foreign baseball bettors of all time, Jason Weingarten.
There was a minor league syndicate, and it was just Jason.
It actually was though. So many people. I don't even know that Jason knows the extent to which this stuff was being bet. There was so many people betting this stuff, like so many. You definitely did not capitalize on it in the way that you should have at the time. I'm okay in saying that. It got around to literally everyone. Everyone who was betting at that time, at some point or another, was approached about Mexican baseball. I'll leave it at that. I'm talking everyone. People will be listening now and they'll be like, yes, Mexican baseball. I remember that. And they're going to put it together. Appreciate your time, Jason. Anyone can check out his stuff on VSiN. He's on with Gil a couple times a week and does a bunch of other hits as well. And you can follow him on Twitter at Spreadapedia. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks for the time, Jason.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
This has been episode 57 of Circles Off. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Any other platform, please rate and review 5 stars, and we'll be back next week.